Welcome into the best of the week of 5 Clubs on Golf Channel. If you missed the program, you missed an 8-time winner, Brad Faxon, who joined me to talk about what's ahead in 2025 as he embarks on another year on the broadcast side on NBC. Andy Roddick, he was the last man to win a Grand Slam title in tennis, but he's heavily invested in the game of golf. And finally, Webb Simpson, a U.S. Open and Players champion, who joined us in studio. Enjoy the best of the week. You know, I've always believed, you love all sports, that the door needs to be left ajar. That underdogs don't drive sports, but there's a thread, there's a texture to that story that always needs to be told, and I hope it continues to be. On another note related to this is the creation of this signature series. Look, you saw it. You saw the value when Norman played in events, 80s into the 90s. Jack, even, he built his schedule around majors, so it wasn't like he was playing 30 events. Tiger, same thing. With the signature series, there really is kind of like a tier system. Do you think players, sponsors, television, in the long run, this system will be good?
Tour has always had tiered system. There's always been invitational events. Arnold's tournament, Jack's tournament, the Colonial was one of those. The Harbor Town was one of those. But this is more of a tier. This is a steeper tier than they've ever had before. And you know, I'm going to name drop a little bit. But my day at MacArthur, I was with the president of the club, Peter Lund, who used to, I think you might know Peter, was the president of CBS Sports, and President Obama was there with a host of big name people, and one of them, Jay Clayton, who used to run the Securities Exchange Commission. He said, look, and he's close to the policy board players and a lot of the players on the tour. And he said, look, we need to get these players back together. And I mean these players, meaning the live players. We need Bryson, we need Brooks, we need Cam Smith. We need all these guys to come back and get together. And he's pretty confident that President Trump is going to be a big factor in moving things quicker. I know there's issues with the Department of Justice, but that's what's missing right now. And I think that's the apathy with the viewers. Is where is everybody? We need these players to play together. We need to not have to worry about what tour they're on.
I'm not surprised that you were in the deep end of the pool yesterday, which is great. That's why I appreciate so much about your pursuit of not only seeing the best things in the world, but the fellowship that comes with it. Speaking of which, look, you spent a lot of time with Rory, and some of it, most of it, I know is constructive. There is a purpose in terms of preparation, but he has evolved in terms of his view of seeing the best places, spending time with people that matter to him, enriching his life in the game of golf. Can doing those things make him a better player?
Without a doubt. Rory's 35 years old now. It's a prime time for a golfer in their age. In 2024, he won 4 times, finished second 4 times, 2 heartbreaking second place finishes, obviously at Pinehurst at the U.S. Open to DeChambeau. Rory played a lot last year, 27 events. I think he knows to be at his peak, he needs to come down on that total a little bit. He's actually over in Dubai this week to play in the DP World Tour event, where he's won now 6 titles over there. And all players that have had some adversity on the golf course have bounced back from that. And Rory's, he's a very resilient player. I think the battles from last year are going to help him going forward. He's the best voice in golf, as you know, Gary. When you talk to Rory, he always tells you something. I think he's motivated. He made some, some incredible swing changes at the end of last year with Michael Bannon, the only coach he's ever had. And I'm bullish on Rory. When you're talking about players that could have breakout years, I think this is going to be a sensational year for McIlroy.
You know, Tiger had such a curious mind, but he wasn't necessarily forthcoming, Brad. Rory has a curious mind, and he is forthcoming. Is there any time when he steps into the big top in the media centers, when he shares thought and he shows introspection, that you go, gosh, I love it, but I wish you wouldn't do that? Do you ever find yourself reflexively saying, please don't share so much?
No, I don't know. I like that when players share that. And, you know, he got criticized last year at Pinehurst when DeChambeau made that up and down, incredible up and down on the 72nd hole to win, and Rory didn't stick around. I wouldn't have stuck around for that. That was gut-wrenching for him to have to endure that towards the end of the round. But when he does walk into a press conference, he's so versed and so schooled in so many topics. It's not just what he's doing in golf. I mean, you think about Rory turned pro at 17 years old, never finished high school. And he can sit with heads of state, which he has, with some of the top businessmen in the country, and talk about a balance sheet or, anything to do with economics. I just think he's a special person, and we're lucky to have him. He's been inside the top 5 in the world for almost 10 years now. Not many people can say that.
With tennis, you look at the draw and you look at who you might play, and then you ultimately do play, and it's a half a dozen guys you got to go through in a slam. With golfers, I know, and Brooks Koepka actually audibilized this. I remember I was sitting right there in 2019 at the PGA, and he said, "Look, I got to beat a dozen guys," and it's like, wow, that's a guy that takes a lot of chops to say that. And there's 156 in the field, but everyone kind of looked around and went, "Yeah, he's kind of right." What's the difference, though, between knowing who your competition is, where with golf, you get out there and the competition's really the environment. It's the setup of the golf course. Like you said, it's different. What is the most different thing about knowing I got to beat this guy, his style against mine, whereas with golfers, you look at the field, but you've got to handle the next hole?
Yeah, there's a couple things. One thing that we don't have to deal with in tennis is no one can just get a hot putter. Right, we're not dealing with someone who's just draining 30 or 40 footers, right? Where the process up to that matters less if someone's just got their eraser out, right? Got their score eraser out. So that's one thing that the best golfer in the world can play a perfect round. Someone, gets out of a bunker, dunks one, makes 3 putts, and all of a sudden you may have lost that day, right? Conversely, in tennis, the best players, best minds in the world can take a scalpel to you physically. Right, I don't move well this way. I don't like it short in the court this way. I always say I played the same point against Roger for 10 years. He hit that short little chip back in, and I had a decision make whether I was going to come in or stay back. Neither was a good option. I think I won 48% of those points, and it manifested in a 3-21 record. So it's just the ability to impose yourself on someone in tennis with physicality, with length of match, with X's and O's versus having a clear head, knowing what's in front of you, hole 1, hole 2, hole 3, hole 4. We don't have that benefit in tennis, but we also don't have the magic eraser to deal with.
Yeah, you mentioned Federer, and look, I wanted to get into sports in any way because I was totally captivated by the performance. And one of the things is the things that you feel. And there are certain athletes in my lifetime that seemed inevitable, that the results seemed inevitable. You had to live through a period where it wasn't just one guy, it was a couple. Federer seemed inevitable. I think Scheffler is getting to that place as a competitor. Did you feel that? Did you feel, and did all of your contemporaries feel like, I can be as good as I can be, but there's this sense that at the end, it's going to be him, kind of like Djokovic then took from him?
Sure. I think what it is for every person on tour, except for maybe, Rafa, Novak, Roger, Murray doesn't get thrown in there enough, and he should, because he had an unbelievable career, especially for that pocket in time. Not the longevity of those guys, because his body gave out a little bit. But every other player outside of those, I thought, if I play well, I'm going to win. And with the greats, 2 things they do. They force you to up your risk profile, right? So I can't just stay into neutral rallies with those 3 and expect for it to go my way. So I have to take more risk. Maybe in golf it's the same way. If you're playing against Tiger, you almost have to play irresponsibly to try to outscore him. And the other thing is they just ask the question consistently, for the course of 4 or 5 hours. There's just no dips, right? And I always say those 3 especially. I played tennis, I held a racket, I hit shots. For those 3, it felt like the racket was an extension of their hand, right? It felt like it was part of it, like it melted into their palm. So absolutely, with those guys specifically, I knew I had to play well, and maybe they had to crack a little bit. And it becomes matchups, right? Like I had a better record against Novak than I did against Roger. Doesn't mean that, I think Novak has the best resume of all time.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, it just becomes matchups, similar to some players don't like hitting a draw. They don't play as well at the Masters, or courses affect players a little differently. But those best players, they can affect you negatively, which is a whole nother thing.
Let's talk about the Ryder Cup. It's interesting that you're going to be on this team because I look at you and Keegan as being aligned for a couple specific reasons. You both won for the first time in the same year. You were the first two players to win majors using an anchored stroke. He won the PGA in August of 11. The following June, you win the U.S. Open. And by April of 2013, the career Grand Slam had been achieved by guys with an anchored putting stroke.
right.
And then a couple years later, you guys have got to figure out how to do it a different way. And by the way, you were fifth in putting in 2018. I don't think he should be a playing captain. I don't care if he's the number one player in the world. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, he's certainly playing as good as anybody right now. I think if he qualifies top 6 on points after not getting picked in Italy, I would personally like to see him play. I want the USA team to win. I think, we've got enough guys who could take over his position, even though it's an important position. I personally would love to see him play because he loves Bethpage.
Yeah.
He feels at home there. He would have the home crowd behind him for sure. And he loves the Ryder Cup. We know how much passion he has for the Ryder Cup. So I don't think he'll be playing if he's not top 6, but I think if he's top 6, I personally am going to push him to play.
My feeling on this is there's a lot here. Is he was selected because the PGA of America, whether it was hastily done or not, thought he's not going to be on the team. And look, he is playing great. To me, when I look at the captain, one of the primary responsibilities of a captain is to insulate his players as best he can from all the noise. How can he, as a player, insulate his players as a player while also being the captain? How can you be best at both? How could he do that?
Yeah, I think being a playing captain on the Ryder Cup might be too impossible. So I think it would be a situation where he would just give up the captaincy probably late whenever the top 6 is finalized to someone else or to a couple of guys. I know he's thinking through it, but I was part of the 2019 President's Cup team, got to see a playing captain in Tiger Woods do both, and it looked like it was very difficult. He seemed to make it look seamless, going, I think, 3-0 for the week.
Yeah, he did.
Normally, I would want him to play all 5 matches in the President's Cup, but it's a hard thing to do. And I've heard for Ryder Cup, that there's more on the captain for the Ryder Cup than there is for the President's Cup.
No doubt.
And already what he's done in 6 months, he's given me a little window into his schedule, and it's blown me away at how much he's done. And so it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. But I know Keegan wants to be the best, whether it's a player or a captain. He cares so much about this Ryder Cup. And what an iconic venue in Bethpage. It's going to be wild. And so
Wild.
It's going to be wild.
It is weird that a guy from Boston who did go to St. John's is the captain, and then his staff is a bunch of Southern boys. Like, I texted Kisner the other day. I said, "You in New York City is like peanut butter and jelly." Like. Hope you enjoyed the best of the week. You can find us on all the social channels and our YouTube channel at 5 Clubs Golf. We'll see you next time on the best of the week of 5 Clubs.